Wherever you are, welcome to another of my takes on China from the Yunnan city of Sichuan-Banna. And I'm sorry about the background noise, construction everywhere. This is an interesting story though. It's all over Western media today as if it only happened a few hours or maybe a few days ago. I personally know nothing about it. Why am I commenting? But it seems, according to Western media, that China has just executed 4 Canadians. Now imagine that. 4 Canadians were in prison in China and no one knew about it? When the 2 Michaels were in prison in China, everyone knew. It seems these 4 have been in prison long enough to be investigated, tried, convicted, appealed, and then executed. And the Canadian government appears to have done nothing about it at all until it's all over the papers today. Certainly they hadn't raised anything in media before this, which they say, according to some reports, was to protect the privacy of the individuals. Now, we don't know their names. We know nothing of their crimes, and we only know from Western media that they're now dead, executed by China. Personally, I can't imagine Canada allowing 4 citizens to be arrested in China without making a diplomatic and therefore quite public fuss about it, let alone allow them to be executed. If it had happened, surely the families of the executed would be all over the State Department, or whatever the equivalent is in Canada. There are some reports, such as CNN though, which suggest that these guys were dual citizens. There's no mention of which other country they're dual citizens of. It won't be America, they'd be up in arms about it anyway, and it shouldn't be China, because China doesn't allow dual citizenship. If they were dual citizens of China and Canada, then China has executed 4 Chinese citizens and will comment no more. They can't be Canadians and Chinese under China's law. Even if Canada wishes to retrospectively call them Canadians, in China they are not recognized. But a lot depends on how they entered China, so here's a hypothesis that might make this explanation a bit easier. China does not recognize dual citizenship, so no one claiming a dual citizenship of China and any other country can enter China legally. If they were on Canadian passports, they would have needed a visa, and a visa would not be allowed to anyone who holds Chinese citizenship. They use their passport. So if they did apply for a visa, they didn't fill in the box which says, do you have any other nationality? Therefore they entered illegally on Canadian passports. Now I do this every time as I'm a British-born Australian. If I was Chinese-born Australian, they would check that I've rescinded my citizenship prior to giving me a visa, and I'd enter China with an Australian passport and all the protections of the Australian embassy if something happened to me here. The same applies for Canadians who have lived in China. I have Canadian friends who have children, but Canada won't give their kids visas because they can have a passport. So they can't have this both ways. And if these drug criminals decided to hide that they were Canadians, then they entered with their Chinese passports. Then I'm sorry, they entered China using Chinese passports and are therefore Chinese citizens. They can't have it both ways either. It seems to me that this is the most likely scenario. China has a zero tolerance on drugs. It does execute drug smugglers, drug manufacturers, drug dealers. Everyone in the world knows this. So to have any sympathy for a person who comes to China to do anything related to drugs, especially international drug smuggling, should keep this in mind. Their sympathy is really wasted. Neither Global Times nor China Daily, the only 2 places I've checked so far, has anything on this. The only thing that I've seen officially is a statement from the Chinese embassy in Ottawa, which says that Canada is being irresponsible. But it doesn't deny or confirm that Canadians were executed. In fact, it doesn't even confirm or deny that anyone was executed. It just says Canada's being irresponsible. Most likely, China has executed 4 people who, after being arrested, claimed to have been Canadian citizens. It's possible they actually were naturalized Canadians, but it's extremely unlikely that they entered China with Canadian passports and Chinese visas. It's more likely They entered China with their old Chinese passports, and so they are and always will be recognized as Chinese. China does recognize dual citizenships of other nations. It has no problem with people like me living here. It's issued visas to me in both my passports. However, if I'm arrested or charged, they will contact the embassy of the country that I used with my passport to apply for my visa. That would be Australia. The short answer to whether China has executed Canadians or not is this. Since people can't be dual citizens in China, China has probably executed 4 Chinese drug criminals who have claimed Canadian citizenship. Now, I'm no big fan of the death penalty. People who follow me know this, but I know China has it, and I know if I commit a capital crime, that's the penalty I face. So one thing everyone should remember is this. If you enter China for the purposes of committing some drug crime, then you really are dumb. They not only have a zero tolerance, and you will be executed, they have, because the US insists on it, a very active and efficient system in place to catch you. So whilst I have a great deal of sympathy for the families and victims of people who face execution, I don't think Canada should be too loud about this story. It will almost certainly backfire on them. The bottom line is this. Do you want drugs in North America or not? If you don't, then please don't be angry about one Asian country's methods of helping you to achieve your goals. The entire purpose of execution is so that people who think they want to commit crimes know that if they get caught, they face execution. It's preventative. And because countries in Asia have it, they don't have many drug problems in those countries. And I expect a lot of what's happened is to do more with raising Asian drug controls to an elevated level of fear, so the ICC will look more severely on Rodriguez Duterte. I very much doubt this has anything to do with any sympathy for people who might have lived for a while in Canada getting justly executed under the laws of the country that they knew would do exactly that if they were caught. And that's my take on this. Let's see how it develops. There's a few more interesting stories coming soon. Bye for now.